Hello and welcome to the Let's Do Video podcast. Very excited today. I have a very special guest, Joan Vandermate from Vidyo, and we have a very cool podcast today. We're going to talk about um, some things you need to know about the company Vidyo itself, its history, its technology, and some really exciting things that are going to be happening in the future. Now, before we get started, a couple little housekeeping notes. I want to thank Logitech this week. You're seeing me on a Logitech camera, and they're a big part of the software revolution. It's allowing us to do desktop video conferencing. I'm a big fan. And we're recording this over video, but I'm using a third-party recording software that I'm just learning how to use. So it's a new series. Please bear with me if there's any technical difficulties here. With that being said, thank you, Joan. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I'd like to start, and I've known Joan for a long time, since back at my Wayne House research days when you were at Polycom.
Yeah.
A lot has changed in the industry since then. And I'm hoping by the end of this podcast, everyone will agree that, as the old song from the 70s goes, we ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
um, Now, I'd like to start by talking about my perception of Vidyo as a company. I feel like you guys have been sort of um, put in a role that you didn't want to be in. You guys are a technology company, and I'm part of the problem. We forced you to be a product company for a long time. When I first heard of Vidyo, it was actually called Layer Media. And I was working at Wayne House, and some engineers came by from this layered media company with some servers. And we set up a Linux box in between to pretend to be the internet. And they showed us how if you send media through the internet, we put in packet loss and latency and all the jitter and all the terrible things, how it comes out at the other end. And I didn't get it. And I said, where's the cameras? Where's the microphones? I know video conferencing. I said, no, we're a technology company. This is the way media goes through the internet. I said, can you put a product around it so we could put it in a meeting room so I could understand it? And Vidyo said, okay, we'll be a product company. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it is fair. I mean, I'm not saying we don't want to offer our own branded solutions, and we certainly do. I think we're uh, the industry sort of forced us because of the habits of people who buy video conferencing are traditionally used to buying hardware solutions. So whether they're talking about infrastructure and they're buying hardware-based MCUs, or they're talking about endpoints and they're used to buying hardware-based codecs in rooms, that's been the habit, and it's really hard to break old habits. So we're a software company who's kind of been forced by the habits of the people who buy video to put hardware around our software. So on the infrastructure side, we ship our video router and video infrastructure components preloaded on servers. They're industry standard servers. Now we do, and we are increasingly just shipping software on VMware. So more and more and more, the trend is going towards virtual devices and virtual appliances. On the desktop side, I'm sorry, on the endpoint side, our forte has always been desktop and mobile and our ability to adapt to any network and run across the public network. But again, as our salespeople engage in transactions with buying customers, they say, yeah, but we need room systems. Yeah, we love desktop and mobile. That's where we want to go in the future, but we need room systems. So we've been sort of forced to offer products that are packaged in a way that look familiar, to make sure that the buyers who are used to buying those things feel good about it. But it's led us down a path that we don't really want to be. That is sort of a little bit of a detour. Where we really want to be, and I think that the market's finally coming around, is providing pure software-based infrastructure on virtual machines, and on the endpoint side, providing pure software-based mobile devices, rooms, desktop video conferencing, and in the room side, we even are now offering pure software room systems. You mentioned Logitech. We have a joint marketing agreement with Logitech where we are pushing our software-based room system and recommending the Logitech peripherals. So even the room system, the last bastion of hardware-based video, is sort of moving into the software realm. So we've had to go a little bit of outside our comfort zone into the hardware world in order to bring the market back to the software model.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about the software revolution, the switch from hardware to software, and in many ways, video is the pioneer of software-based video conferencing. I remember back in the day when I would brief with the other video conferencing companies, we would sometimes do it over the phone. Shh, don't tell anyone, but I would brief with video companies over the phone. But with video from day one, it was because I was able to do it on my desktop just by downloading software. It was software. And I should mention a quick to give kudos to our friend Marty, who actually was the came up with the name Video,
Yep.
and Marty Hollander, and some analysts call it Vidyo. They try to put a J in there. It's Video, just like you say Video. It just looks cooler because it has a Y in there. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of Marty. He's like, in my mind, he's like the Steve Jobs of our industry because he's so enthusiastic and so creative. But that was the second phase of turning from layered media to video when you became a product company. Um,
Yeah.
and pioneers in software video conferencing, basically because of the technology, which is SVC, which I've written about at length, but I'd like to spend a couple minutes on. And I think it speaks to how you are a technology company, because when you talk to video people, even talking to the CEO, Ofer Shapiro, talk about the latest products, yes, very excited, very proud of them, but you start talking about the patents and the eyes start sparkling. That's what it really
Yeah.
comes down to. And any technologist would have to really appreciate what SVC is all about. Um, in my mind, it's kind of analogous to what Nikola Tesla did with AC power. I don't think I've ever mentioned this to anybody. It kind of was running through my mind today, but I'm a big fan of him. He's the guy they named the car after, the electric car. But he was back when Edison was inventing everything. There was a big war between Edison and Tesla, and DC power is a lot like old school video conferencing. It sent a direct current, a direct signal to each endpoint, to each apartment. So if there was a power plant that served 5,000 people, there'd be 5,000 wires coming out of that power plant. If you had an apartment building with 100 apartments in it, there were 100 wires going directly from that apartment building to the power plant. It was a mess, wires everywhere, impossible to manage. There had to be a power plant every 5 blocks in the middle of every neighborhood. Just like with traditional video conferencing, there was an MCU in the middle of every meeting, sending a
Yep.
direct individual signal to every endpoint. If you have a $200,000 telepresence system, that expensive box sends a specific processed signal to that. And if you're meeting on a desktop, depending on what kind of desktop, a very specific signal, expensive, hard to manage, a lot of latency. Then Tesla comes along and says, instead of DC, I've invented this thing called AC. You have one wire coming out of the power plant, and it just goes down the street, and everybody just pulls off what they need. And if you just need a little power for a small tool, you just pull a little power. If you need a big, you don't need a direct specified. And that's what SVC is. SVC is one signal that goes to everyone. And if I just need a few pixels to have a video on my phone, I just take a few pixels. And if I need more for my laptop, I take more. And if I need more for my expensive telepresence system, I get more. And it doesn't have to send a special process signal to everyone. It just sends the same thing to the world, which makes it obviously a lot easier to manage, a lot easier to deal with. And it just seems like the right way to do it on so many levels. Is that you think it's a fair explanation of? I know I
Yeah.
dumbed it down, but
It's just so much more computationally efficient. Um, that I remember back in the day, looking at the motherboards for the big MCUs, and we had challenges with chip density and board density. How big could you make the boards before literally the weight of the circuitry would cause them to bow? We actually had one product that the boards had to stand vertically, because if you loaded the boards on the side, or if you turned the box over, the weight of the board would cause it to bow. And that's because of the huge amount of processing power that's required to crunch every single individualized video stream. So it's kind of that you'd need 5,000 wires type of analogy. Just think of the amount of copper you would have needed if we'd stayed in the DC days. So it's kind of the same. Copper wires in this case equate to chips, DSPs on boards. So you reach a point where it simply can't scale. You just break, it's just not economical. You simply cannot do it. And so what video has done is brought a better way that is very, very highly scalable. I mean, vastly scalable at very, very cost-effective price points, because we don't require just a huge amount of processing power. At the same time, since video was founded in 2005, so in the last 9 years, chips have gotten faster. I mean, every generation of CPUs just gets faster and faster and faster. Graphics capabilities get faster. We have driven better, more efficient encoding technologies. We've now contributed to the H.265 HEVC patent, which has just been standardized. We are driving the WebRTC VP9, adding our secret sauce, our intellectual property, into the VP9 codec. And so the combination of just a significantly more efficient processing encoding mechanism, combined with increases over the last decade in processing power and devices. You can get, I mean, what's in my old, and this is an old one, my old iPhone, 10 years ago was probably what you get in a high-end computer on the desktop as far as sheer processing power. So the combination has just reached the point where you can do phenomenal quality video with smooth, no more artifacting, no more pixelization. You don't need huge amounts of bandwidth. I remember when telepresence first came out, I think they were saying 9 megs per screen, right? So a 3-screen telepresence system, 27 megs, give me a break. Really? And then put 10 of them in a call, right? I mean, seriously. So now you can do phenomenal video over very low bandwidth. The network doesn't have to be pristine. You can have some packet loss. You can have some jitter. So we really solved all of those technical problems that kept video off of everybody's device, whether mobile device or desktop.
No, and you're not joking about the processing power that's required. I remember when HD first became a thing in video conferencing, and one of the companies, I don't think they even exist anymore, but they had a strong video bridge that did less than HD. And they got the new chips in that could do HD, but they needed to put it in a new box with more venting and bigger fans. While they were waiting to get the new box, they put the chips in the old box just to see what HD looked like. And it worked, but the thing caught on fire because it was running so hot and took so much processing power that, they were worried how it would look. The rumors went out, this new box turns on fire. Like, no, wait till we get the new fans. We were just testing. And it was okay when the final version came out. It worked fine, but that's how much power it took to make video conferencing work using the old protocols.
I never want to be in a position again as a marketer or product manager where I have to worry about heat dissipation.
Yeah, and it was a major issue. The other real benefit of SVC is it enabled video conferencing over the internet. Before SVC, video conferencing over the internet, if you just put a little bit of packet loss, there's a little packet loss on the internet. Sometimes you click your email, it takes an extra half a second to send, something happened. With an email, it'll get there. With video conferencing, there's so much data streaming back and forth, a tiny bit of packet loss would destroy a call. I mean, not just impact it, it would destroy it. The way SVC works, and again, dumbing it down very much, layered media, the old name of the company, it's broken up into layers. The base layer is just the audio, and that doesn't take a lot of bandwidth. They can always protect that no matter what. Then you got your little bit of video, a little bit higher resolution, some more frame rate, some more resolution. So if, it sends the whole thing to everyone, but if I'm on a laptop that is on wireless, maybe it'll drop a few frames, or maybe it'll lower the resolution a little bit. So I still have a great meeting, but it's a meeting tailored for me without having the processing of sending a tailored signal. And what that meant is now we could do video over the internet. We don't have to spend so much money for a protected QoS 99.999 protected network, or even worse, go to ISDN, a completely separate network, just to keep it off the public internet. I'm at my home office. This is public internet. And this isn't something new. This is the way video has worked since day one.
Yeah, the genius in the layering and the ability to have the video router. I mean, the genius is in that video router and the ability for it to constantly sample not only the network, but also sample the CPU ability or availability of all of the endpoints and adjust the streams on the fly, and it's doing it many times a second. So that ability, combined with the processing efficiency, just makes it so you can have an extremely smooth call. We just recently at Independent Lab did some testing with our products and some competitors' products, and I won't tell you which ones, but some competitors' products where they inserted jitter, they inserted latency, they inserted packet loss, they dropped the bandwidth. So they did all kinds of not nice things to the network while the calls were up. And, still in all, even after, almost 10 years now, video just hands down delivers a better quality experience under all of those variables. And that's what really makes it possible now to kind of take the industry to the next level, which is to move away from purpose-built product solutions that are a fixed function video solution, and move into embedding video in all sorts of different applications and services and workflows. And that's really where, we've, again, as I've said, we've kind of come full circle, not abandoning the discrete products business, but really we see the opportunity for video and for the industry as a whole to grow in ways that are really non-traditional. So embedding video in customer service portals, as an example, embedding video in healthcare workflows, where the doctors may be using tablets or their mobile phones or a patient bedside system. We just signed a huge deal with one of the leading, or the leading, I should say, the leading provider of patient bedside entertainment systems. So now if you have the misfortune to be in a hospital and you have the TV that swings on the arm over your bed, that TV will also be a live interactive video device. So you can call people at home, you can interact with the clinical staff, you can talk to the pharmacy about your medications, you can interact in any way you want, and at the same time it's the same device that you'll be using also for your entertainment. So just those sorts of things that were never possible before, because you'd have had to push a cart into the room or mount an expensive room system and dedicated camera, dedicated screen, dedicated box. You're not going to do that. Again, that cost effectiveness. You I guess conceivably you could maybe have outfitted every single hospital bed with a traditional room system, but nobody would really do that because you're not going to spend that kind of money. But when it's merely a piece of software you deploy on an already available screen that you're putting next to the bedside for entertainment, and it's just a software license you add on, it makes it completely available.
This is where it gets exciting for me. This is where I feel like video is coming into their own, because I don't think you guys are planning on making the products. You guys are going to be like the Intel Inside. Whoever makes the products, they should be using your technology to pump the video through it. There's a lot of talk about the Internet of, some people say the Internet of Everything, and some people say the Internet of Things. I prefer the Internet of Things, because when you say everything, there's some things we don't need video on. Everybody says the Internet of Things. You see there's always a graphic with a refrigerator, and people always say, I don't want video conferencing on my refrigerator. It's not about that. It's about the fact that if computers are now this small, we could stick them in a TV. We could stick them in the TV, the monitor in like you were saying, in a hospital room. We could stick them anywhere, not everywhere, but where it makes sense. And now we're talking about some really exciting things. Now video conferencing is not just out of the boardroom, but it's out of the business environment. It can be everywhere that makes sense. Now healthcare is a great example. And a lot of it is
the opportunity for business to consumer video. So both in using devices that consumers already own, whether it's a tablet or a mobile phone or even a desktop or notebook PC. And then also video enabling some of those things, not everything. I completely agree. Do you want Oh, well, it's just to give it a sort of off the wall example. Would you want to video enable your thermostat in your house so that you could, like, who would you talk to, right? I mean, there's a little bit of you have to sort of take that Internet of Things market and say, within that Internet of Things market, and those things that are now connected, those connected devices or connected things, which of those type of things would lend themselves to a live face-to-face interaction. So things like the patient bedside system, that's a thing. It's a system that's going to be at every patient's bedside in every hospital room in the world. You're gonna put a screen there because they're gonna have they're gonna want to watch TV while they're in the hospital. The ability to it's going to be connected to the hospital network. So the ability to simply add a camera device, either embedded in the screen or an aftermarket like a Logitech webcam, put a piece of software on that system, and now have a multi-purpose device that's not only useful as an entertainment system, but also as a communication system. So that's sort of a no-brainer. Other things are a little bit more of a stretch. Do we want to start to think in terms of um, remote diagnostics for heavy equipment or for oil wells, drilling platforms, etc. Is there any value in putting again a screen, an inexpensive screen, and an inexpensive compute device, so that someone working on an oil pipeline or a remote oil platform or a piece of heavy equipment in a remote mining location could bring in a subject matter expert and have them see what I see? So is there a value in that? I think there are, and we're seeing a lot of interest towards embedding our software into non-traditional devices and non-traditional workflows.
Yeah, a simple example is when I take my car in to get maintenance. Um, my mechanic is great, but what if he's never really worked on my type of car before? And what if it's a part of the car really deep in the engine that he's just never done before? I don't want him guessing. I don't want him taking it apart and doing what I would do, putting it back together and having a few pieces left over. I want him bringing in the expert, but I don't want to wait for however many weeks till the guy who's good at that happens to be in town. It'd be great if right on the end of his flashlight or whatever tools he uses, I'm not a mechanic, if the video's right there and he's able to look over his shoulder at the monitor and say, am I doing this right? Oh, to the left? I mean, that's the kind of
Yeah.
everyday processes where it does make sense to put in some video.
We just participated last week in a conference in San Francisco here at the Moscone Center, the I believe it was American College of Surgeons. Don't quote me on the actual name of the organization, but it was the surgical professional group, their annual meeting, and they wanted to bring in subject matter experts on the topic of telemedicine, but more specifically telesurgery. And the idea of having maybe the person who pioneered a particular surgical technique, whether it's a valve replacement or inserting a stent or a laparoscopic or arthroscopic surgery. So the surgeon who may have pioneered that, he could be in New York City, he could be at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale or up in Michigan. So that surgeon could be remote. But if you're going to have that surgery done, wouldn't you like to have that person literally looking over the shoulder of the surgeon that is, doing your surgery, and coaching them and saying, aha, this is what I'm seeing here. This is what you need to be doing. And so that kind of thing with that, whether I know a lot of raised eyebrows at things like Google Glass and wearable technology, but certainly for whether they're going to wear glasses or it could be a camera that is simply a lapel cam, the idea of using video to bring in subject matter experts for things like, again, surgeries or heavy equipment repairs or anything that takes expertise, it's certainly a lot more cost effective and time effective to bring in the expert over video.
Yeah. Even going back to your example of the hospital room, some people, I think they misunderstand when we talk about these things. They say, "Oh, wait a minute, I'd rather have, my doctor there in person. I don't want to downgrade to video." It's not a downgrade from video, it's an upgrade from the phone call. Your doctor's still going to come in and visit you. But if you have a very rare condition and the expert is on the other side of the planet, you would never get, he's not going to fly in to see you. You can't afford him. But you might get him to come in on video. So in that case, it's an upgrade. The expert diagnostic, and not just in healthcare, in anything like auto mechanics or whatever, that's something that you just wouldn't have at all without
Yeah.
video. So I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah, there's a huge movement, and healthcare is really leading. And I don't want to use only healthcare examples, but they are really right on the front edge. Huge movement towards doing a better job of monitoring patients after they are released from the hospital. So it's one thing when you're in the hospital, your doctor comes in and they do their rounds every day. They see you once a day. And they do still come in person, though they can also do rounds and visit over video. But once you're released from the hospital, traditionally, you don't see the doctor again unless you go back for your checkup a week later or a month later or what have you. And if something goes wrong, you pick up the phone and call, right? And having had a parent who had some major surgery about a year ago and was in ICU and then went home and then had to go back to ICU, and
Mm.
the idea of having the physician be able to visit the patient at home and check on their whether or not they're following the aftercare instructions, whether or not they're taking their medications, whether they're taking care of their wounds. I believe personally, my mother wouldn't have had to be readmitted to the hospital if she had had better aftercare, better follow-up afterwards. And that's one of the ways you can do that is by bringing a doctor into the patient's home via video, because unfortunately doctors cannot make house calls anymore. It's
Yeah.
not a reality of our day.
Yeah, and that example shows this isn't just a convenience thing or a nicety. This is a major difference in people's lives. I mean, in people's health. And you're saying it seems like healthcare is such a great example. It's so easy to go to it, but it is just one example. I mean, there's plenty of other fields. A year or so ago, I wrote a white paper with video on video conferencing in the legal profession, and it was a very cool use case. It was a law firm in New Orleans where I used to practice. So it really kind of brought me home. And I know the culture in New Orleans. For some reason, people are very intimidated by going downtown to meet with their lawyers. And they get into an accident or whatever, and they put it off and they put it off. And by the time their family forces them to go down and meet with the lawyer, the evidence is stale and it's you have to start all over. And what they did is they have their investigators, because lawyers can't make house calls any more than doctors. There's just not enough lawyers, and they have to be at the office and do work. They would send their paralegals or investigators with an iPad and meet your lawyer, talk to your lawyer, explain the case, and while we're here, bring up on the iPad, sign the contract. Now you're off to the races. The lawyer is filing the initial forms and getting them to court, and they haven't even left their home yet. Again, it's
Yeah.
really changing people's lives, and it's not a downgrade from seeing your lawyer in person. It's an upgrade from a phone call.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny. You're touching on something that's really interesting. Is not only does for things to really change, for new things to really take off, two things have to happen. One, the technology has to be available and work well and smoothly and inexpensively. And so videos, we've conquered that mountain. The next thing is people have to start to think about how things can be done differently. So in that law firm example, the old school way would be that the client would call the lawyer and say, I got in a wreck, and they'd say, okay, come in next Tuesday, and they'd drive in next Tuesday, and they'd meet with the investigator, and the investigator probably fill out a report and hand it over to the lawyer, and a week after that, the following Tuesday, they'd have another meeting, and they'd actually get the case going. And so it would move in its old-fashioned, very slow, sort of onerous process. Today, what they do is the client calls in, potential client calls in, they send out the investigator, they have the meeting over the iPad, they immediately sign the papers to retain the attorney, and the case proceeds. So first meeting, so you've changed a process. So what's happened is not only have we used technology, but we've changed a process. And when people simply try to apply video with a Y or video with an E, generic video, to the same old business processes. Like when we have meetings, we all fly in once a quarter for our quarterly get together, and we all go sit in a conference room. Okay, we'll add a video screen to that so that the one person who can't manage to fly in because they are stuck in Chicago in a snowstorm, now they can join over video. That's not revolutionary. That's just basically applying technology to the same way we always did business. So what we need to see is people starting to think in terms of how can I apply technology to change the business process, to change the workflow. We have a great example of an insurance company in Europe called DECRA, and they now do claims adjustment over video. So if you're a consumer and you have a claim, a homeowner's claim of a damage to your house, you call DECRA, they set a video appointment with you. You at the time of that scheduled appointment, they send it on a calendar notice. When that calendar notice comes up, you click on the link, and you have a video call, and you use the camera in your smartphone or tablet to actually show the adjuster the damage. So the adjuster no longer drives out to the consumer's house and takes pictures and goes back to the office and processes the paperwork. They simply do screen grabs from the consultation. They do the paperwork right there. And again, it's about efficiency. It's faster, in this case, faster claims adjustment, faster claims settlement. In the case of the law firm, it's signing clients faster, getting litigation in process faster. Another thing we're seeing, and I know you're familiar with this, is using video for depositions and arbitrations. Again, you can get expert witnesses who may not be available if you had to do an in-person, if they had to fly in for a deposition or for testimony. Oftentimes, what we're seeing with one of our partners who offers a video-enabled deposition and arbitration service is that litigation is settled faster because they record the depositions when the other side, whether it's the plaintiff or the defendant, the other side sees the deposition and they see the evidence. They are much more likely to settle very quickly. So claims can be settled faster. So there's just a ton of efficiencies that can be gained by thinking in terms of not only, should I put video on our desktop? Well, that's fine. Put video on your desktop. Put it on everything. We want it on everything. But thinking in terms of how can I change business process to make myself more efficient, provide better, higher levels of customer service, and just speed of business. I'll just give you one other example. I know I'm kind of rambling, but
Oh, no.
One other example in the high-tech industry, we have lots and lots of successes in software companies today tend to be very distributed. Their engineering organizations can be in the U.S. and multiple sites in the U.S. They can be in Europe, Eastern Europe, India, China. They're very, very distributed. And the name of the game, of course, with today's software companies is agile development and very fast revs, right? No longer are we going to sit and do it one rev a year. I mean, they're doing revs, literally on a monthly basis. You're seeing .revs come out. So using video for Scrum meetings and to drive faster innovation in software, and then also improve quality assurance, improve your quality by using video so that you can really get the engineers, the QA people who might be in Bangalore and the developers who might be in Silicon Valley. You can get them together on a regular weekly cadence, and also on an ad hoc basis. They can simply click and make a call. We've got, we see if we've seen our bug counts go up, we're going to make that call to the QA team and see what's happening with the test plans. So we're seeing a ton of traction with video in the high tech and the software industry.
Yeah, that's really not surprising to me because I've been studying Agile Scrum, and I think a lot of companies are doing it wrong. You have people who are just coding all day, and you look over their shoulder, you don't know what they're doing. They could be goofing around. And you need a way to kind of wrangle them and keep track of them. And you also need a way to protect them because they have 6 bosses and they're working on one project and the other boss comes in and says, hey, have you put in my feature yet? Then they have to stop and do that. So with Agile, they meet every day and they say, this is what you're working on for the next 24 hours. What did you do in the last 24 hours? So you figure out what they did and you let them know what they're going to, and you protect them and you say, you're working on this for the next 24 hours. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. And it's supposed to be a short, it's called a scrum, which is like in rugby, everybody kind of huddles together really quick and then gets out. It's supposed to end quick after 15 minutes. If anyone's still talking, you shut them off. And during that 15 minutes, you say, do you have any blockages? Did anything prevent you from doing this? And they say, yes, I need help with this. And that all works great. But what's supposed to happen, if you read the Scrum Bible of the right way to do it, is after that 15-minute meeting is over, the master of the Scrum is supposed to meet with the masters of the other Scrums. It's supposed to have a super Scrum where they say, hey, one of my guys has a blockage. Can one of your guys help? No one's doing the Scrum of Scrums. No one's doing the master Scrum because one Scrum is in New York and another Scrum is in San Francisco and another Scrum's in China. With video, you have your local Scrum, you kick out your engineers, and your Scrum Master gets on video with the other Scrum Masters, and you're doing it the right way. And there's a reason it's the right way. It makes things happen. It makes that 1-year cycle down to a 6-month development cycle. So it really is, it affects the speed of business. And time is money in business. Back to the example you gave of working in a law firm. I was an environmental attorney, and I worked on this big case suing a landfill, and we had a toxicologist in California. We had an air dispersion modeler in Florida. We had a water pollution expert in New York, and I was in New Orleans. And I would talk to them on the phone, and we kind of, you can only get so much over the phone. We understand, we send reports back and forth. Every 3 or 4 months, we'd fly them all in at an amazing expense, and it was worth every penny it cost to fly them in, because in the day that they were there, I would get more done with them than the 3 months of phone calls. I mean, we'd be hugging each other about how excited we were that we figured it all out. It was worth it. If we could have been having all of those phone calls over video, that case took 3 years to settle. It would have settled in 6 months. It really would have. And another example, and this is almost as good an example of telehealth. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about banking, because I think people don't get it. I saw Ofer Shapiro, your CEO, was on TV recently being interviewed about using video in banking. And the person who was interviewing him, she didn't get it. And nothing against her. She's typical. She's a very smart lady on TV interviewing. It's just the typical view of video conferencing replaces travel, which isn't what it's about. And she's like, well, wait a minute. When I set up a new account, I want to shake hands with my banker. I want to be there in person. I don't want to replace that with video. Aren't we losing connectivity? And Ofer did his best to explain. It's like, no, you're still going to I go to the bank 2 or 3 times a year to meet in person, and I talk to them on the phone 20, 30 times a year. I'm still going to the bank those 2 or 3 times a year, but those 20 to 30 phone calls, I want them to be video calls. Because when I call them and I don't know what this charge is, can you help me? I'm just a voice. They don't care. They're going to transfer me to someone else. If I can look them in the eyes and they see my pain, maybe they'll help me. And I don't think people get that, and hopefully they'll start to get that. It's not about travel. It's about upgrading the non-travel connecting experiences. And I know you guys are doing some stuff in banking that can we hint about? I know we can't talk about all of it.
So I can talk about one publicly. So we have IndusInd Bank, which is the fastest growing bank in India, that has used our platform to embed video in what they call their video banking application. It's broadly released now. They're actually running national ad campaigns on all of the major networks in India, television networks in India. And basically any IndusInd customer can now use their mobile phone or tablet or desktop device to contact their banker and have a banking transaction via video. So that one is public, and that's just a commercial banking app. We do have a couple of other very large banks. They are 2 of the 10 largest banks in the world who are embedding video into a customer service portal. In this case, this will not initially be just a standard consumer banking app. So if you have a checking account with, I'll call it Big Bank is Us or whatever, with a big huge bank. So if you have a checking account with Big Huge Bank, and you just are a casual consumer banking customer, this service won't be available to you, at least initially. I think they envision that someday it could certainly be available to casual consumers. But initially, both of these large banks are rolling out a red carpet service for their high value customers. So these are customers that have significant assets on deposit with them and or are have significant lines of credit and are availing themselves of their premier services, whether they're calling them platinum customers or premier customers, or however they categorize them. They are their most valued customers. And they're again, both of these banks are rolling out customized portals where you will be able to engage with your personal banker and in a one-on-one discussion about your investment, account or your line of credit, or conduct, transactions, whether it might be, refinancing a loan, or, moving money from one brokerage account to another. So whatever sorts of transactions those customers want to do, typically they do want to do them face-to-face, but they aren't always available to go down to the bank. They may want to have a face-to-face transaction, but they may be, again, these are very high value individuals. They may be on their yacht in the Cayman Islands for all I know, and they will be able to still have a face-to-face transaction with their personal banker. And the reason these banks are doing it is not because they are, they love video, or they just want to do it because it's great technology. The reason they want to do it is they see the value in having a closer personal relationship and a face-to-face relationship with those high-value customers. It's a very, very competitive world, the world of high-end banking, and the more that they can provide very personalized services to those customers, the more likely they are to keep those customers as preferred customers of that particular bank. So, like I said, two of the largest banks in the world are rolling it out. They aren't released yet. Will be over the next few months, and I think this will become certainly for high wealth banking, for that type of brokerage account service. I think that video-enabled portals will become pretty much existential. I mean, I think it will become a de facto checklist item that, of course, I'll be able to meet with my banker over video. I think and whether that's a year or 2 years or 5 years, I think at some point investors or high wealth individuals are simply not going to accept that the only way to see my banker is to go in to their location. No, sorry, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, the choice now is, you set aside an entire day to go in, which for people who are that busy isn't acceptable, or you do these big important transactions over the phone, which is just uncomfortable. So I think this is really, yeah, it's going to happen because it's the only way. And I also see it moving down the line, even with the less affluent consumers. The clerk at the bank is always there for you. But what if you need some specialist help? What if you need a small business loan or some mortgage advice or even a small investment portfolio? You need to talk to their expert, and their expert isn't there every day because they have one mortgage guy who's servicing 5 locations and he floats around. So you could meet with him next Tuesday when he's going to be there, or you could drive across town to wherever he is, or do it on video. I think it's going to happen. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I think that I think people still perceive that video is very expensive. And unfortunately, because of the legacy of heavyweight hardware products that are still in the market, and in fact still kind of dominate the market, people really don't understand how inexpensive it is. Honestly, at scale, video with a Y deployments are less expensive than a traditional telephone bridge, than a traditional conference call type bridge.
Yeah.
And there's no price reason anymore to not do it. I think that there's still a general resistance to video on a lot of kind of a generational thing. Certainly a lot of people are not comfortable on video. I think rapidly with the prevalence of consumer video tools, whether it's Skype or Google Hangouts or my goodness, I'm blanking out. FaceTime. Like I was blanking out on Apple. So whether it's FaceTime or Skype or Google Hangouts, people are becoming rapidly accustomed to it, but there's a bit of a generational problem. So I think that the hurdles, the technology hurdles are pretty much overcome. The cost hurdles are overcome, and now there's just a bit of a cultural,
The,
personal bias.
it may sound like the scary news is, I hate to use buzzwords, the digital natives, the millennials, the kids, they're going to demand it. But the good news is we're ready. I mean, it works
Yeah.
now. So when they come into the workforce and they say, "Where's my video?" We're going to say, "Oh, it's right here." Another an example of video deployment, video with a Y, that you brought to mind when you're talking about uh, a large scale deployment being affordable. You guys briefed me a year or so ago on CERN. In Those are the guys who invented the World Wide Web, and they're finding the Higgs and Bose particles and
Yeah,
things that I'll
apparently they proved it. It's a little over my head, but apparently they did prove
way
it.
over
The
my
Higgs
head.
boson. Yeah.
And so they're not dumb. They know what they're doing, and they are a research facility. They can afford to just waste money, and they put in a massive deployment of video conferencing using video that would have cost, I can't even imagine if we're talking about traditional endpoints. And it's all affordable, it's all scalable. They're able to spread it out to anyone in the organization and their affiliate organizations that they want. And this might be a little outside of the discussion, but what really impressed me was looking at the statistics of the call use. And with a lot of new technologies, you have your early adopters, and you see use goes way up at first, and then they get bored of it and it goes down, and then there's just the diehards who love it. And what I saw with the use was it went way up when everybody used it, and it stayed there. They tried it and they liked it and they keep on using it. And that was amazing to me. And that was okay, we've arrived in my mind.
Yeah, their use has continued to grow. They've kind of plateaued off. I think they have something like 50,000 registered users at this point, and I think we've kind of reached their entire scientific community. So I think that we've kind of reached near saturation of the folks that are associated with CERN. But their traffic continues to grow. They actually have a very cool public dashboard that's available on their website. You can go to CERN's website and click on, I think it's on IT, and look at their live statistics. You can actually watch their live stats of how many calls they have up at any given time, how many people are participating in calls. They have huge calls. So they have huge call volumes in the sense that it's not uncommon for them to have like 600 to 800 calls per day on their video deployment, but they also have huge calls. So single given calls often have in excess of 100, sometimes 200 and 300 scientists and researchers from around the world participating in single calls. So it's also very interesting to look at. They also publish statistics on what types of devices people are joining from, whether they're joining from mobile devices, video desktop, or legacy room systems, because a lot of the research institutions they're affiliated with have deployments of legacy, H323 video systems. And so it's kind of fun. You can see the mix of desktop, mobile clients, and then legacy room systems. So it's a really cool dashboard.
Yeah. And I love the fact that we've reached the point of mixed meetings. The old way we did video conferencing, we met from one meeting room to another meeting room because that's the only place we could afford to put our video conferencing systems. It's an expensive shared resource that goes in the meeting room. But why would meeting room A need to talk to meeting room B? That's a kind of weird dynamic. What we need is people physically meeting in meeting room A, and whoever couldn't make it that day to jump in on video. One final message I want to give out today. I've learned that our friends at Crestron today is a very sad day for them. They've lost a leader and a great man in the industry. My friend Ira Weinstein at Wainhouse Research has written a very heartfelt and very touching blog post about it, which I couldn't possibly add to or improve upon. I've linked to it on the website at letsdovideo.com. I would suggest everyone in the industry, take a moment, read Ira's blog, and our thoughts go out to our friends at Crestron. And I hate to end it on a sad note, but it really needed to be said. And with that, thank you so much, Joan, for meeting with me. It's always great to see you and to see you and not just talk to you on the phone because we are using video. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you at the next podcast.
Thanks for having me.